Outside the 1903 courthouse and the Bartow County Annex building is this marker. Originally cast, Bartow County was created by an act of December 3rd, 1832 from Cherokee County. The name was changed December 6, 1861 to honor General Francis S. Bartow, Confederate political leader and soldier who fell mortally wounded at the First Battle of Manassas. And while leading the 7th and 8th Georgia volunteers of his brigade, his last words were said to be, "They have killed me, boys, but never give up." First officers of this county, commissioned March 9th, 1833, were Benjamin F. Adair, Sheriff Chester Hawks, Clerk Superior Court Leathern Rankin, Clerk Interior Court Neely Goodwin, and Surveyor John Pack Coroner. This is Bartow County, North Georgia. Let's go. Welcome everybody to another vlog. This is your boy P9 and I am in the city of Cartersville, Georgia, located not far from Atlanta in the Atlanta metro area. And I'm about to do a walkthrough through the city and get some historical sites and some history behind Cartersville. So let's get into it, shall we? Now, I'm standing outside the butcher shop known as Finley's Butcher Shop, which was formerly a florist, built in 1946, and it's this nice statue of a cow. And I'm about to walk down Main Street in downtown Cartersville. Now, Cartersville is a city with a population of 23,187. It is the seat of Bartow County. And a lot of history associated with Cartersville as I make my way down Main Street. Get a view of this right here. Here's Gary's Bakery, a staple here in Cartersville since 1961. There's also the Mule House restaurant right here, built in 1906. Right across from the pawn shop. But to give you some historical background of Cartersville, originally named Birmingham when it was founded by English Americans in 1832, Cartersville was incorporated in 1854 as a town and named after plantation owner Colonel Farish Carter. So Cartersville was founded roughly a decade before the Civil War. Right across the street from the Cartersville Bartow Chamber building. Now, Cartersville was incorporated as a city in 1872, 5 years after designated seat of Bartow County. So basically, following the destruction of Cassville, which was the original county seat of Bartow, the seat was moved to Cartersville, and Cassville was destroyed in the midst of the Civil War by no one other than William T. Sherman. Check out that classic Mustang right there. That's sick. Yeah, they have a boutique shop right here. Hardy Realty. This is Irwin Street right here. We'll walk and just past the Legion Theater. There's a Legion Theater over there. I'm gonna come back down Main Street. I'm gonna take a little walk down Irwin Street. White and Choice Attorneys at Law. So over here by the administration offices, courthouse and stuff like that, city offices. This is one of the city offices right here. Cross over here to the Bartow County Courthouse. These are the courthouse grounds right here. As you can see, the cupola up there with the clock, golden dome. And you have this monument right here dedicated to William Harold Felton, who was born in Oglethorpe County, Georgia, and passed away. He was born in 1823 in Oglethorpe County, Georgia, and died right here in Cartersville in 1909. Served 8 terms in the Georgia legislature. So that's the monument dedicated to him. And I wonder what this building is right here. Sam Jones Memorial Church. So this is the Methodist Episcopal Church, another historical building right here in Cartersville. So right here, we're at the corner of Main Street and Church Street. Now, this right here is the Church Street Bridge, officially called the John W. Dent Bridge, dedicated in 1983, named after the mayor at the time, John W. Dent. So this bridge right here, this Church Street Bridge, actually leads, heads eastward from downtown onto Tennessee Street, which is a major commercial street, a lot of restaurants, shopping centers, things of that nature. So downtown's not too far. You know, this bridge basically connects downtown from downtown to the major drag. near Highway 41. So pretty interesting stuff. Over here behind City Hall, Cartersville, Georgia, on Public Street. About to get some of the history and sculptures over here in this area. And this is a sculpture right here. It's called Pathways to Freedom, a story in every stitch. And this sculpture is by, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Prism Law Cortis, who was commissioned by the African American Quilt Documentation Project of Bartow County and donated to the city of Cartersville in an unveiling ceremony on May 10th, 2018. The patterns in the quilt motif are believed to have been used by enslaved Africans in their escape to freedom. Legend holds that quilt patterns were given code meanings to aid slaves in their fight to freedom via the Underground Railroad. Underground Railroad was a secret passage used 3 decades prior to the American Civil War. This monument pays homage to the indomitable human spirit and courage of those who risked their lives to gain freedom. And PK, as he was known to his friends, was born in Poland and received his degree from the Academy of Fine Art in Gdansk, Poland. He moved to America in 2002 and became a citizen in 2011. So here's a multitude of stitches and what they mean. North Star, prepare to journey north of freedom. Sailboat, prepare to cross a body of water. Monkey wrench, gather the necessary tools in order to escape. And Crossroads referred specifically to Cleveland, Ohio, code name Station Hope. This area was one of the most active sites in the Underground Railroad movement. Let me take a brief moment to get this shot of the freight trains passing through Cartersville, downtown. They have a combination of Norfolk Southern and CSX freight cars over there. Just wanted to capture this moment real quick before the train passed through. But yeah, the log cabin, including a safe house, or sometimes would have been drawn to the ground to indicate it was time to seek shelter. Bear's paw followed the path of the bear to find food and water. Basket to gather food and provisions. Safe houses used this pattern to show food was provided there. The wagon wheel packed provisions for traveling by wagon. Some records indicate that hidden compartments in wagons were one of the primary means of transporting runaways. And the flying geese will follow the path of flying geese to the north. Many slaves escaped during the spring when geese were migrating north. That's very interesting. You know what I'm saying? That they use these stitches as code in their journey from the Underground Railroad, obviously pioneered by Harriet Tubman. So they use codes, they use secret codes. They basically, so that way it wouldn't blow their cover. And here's the sculpture up close of the Pathways to Freedom. So shout out to PK for this nice sculpture in 2018, stainless steel composite. So shout out to PK and shout out to Poland. Nice artistry right there. Some more nice works of art over here. As you can see, there goes the Cartersville Railroad Depot. Cartersville also was along the route of the Western and Atlantic Railroad between Atlanta and Chattanooga. So there it goes right there. And again, there goes the train. Stop right here on the tracks. And this sculpture in front of the tracks, it's really nice sculpture made out of stainless steel. It's called Mesa Man. It's by Eric Strauss. It was built in 1995 and on loan from the Booth Western Art Museum right here in Cartersville. So really nice sculpture. Made out of stainless steel. And it was created in the mid 1990s for an art exhibition in City Hall East in Atlanta. Mesa Man has evolved over time. Strauss designed this figurative piece as a diversion from his older work. It has been added to over time. Imagine standing on top of a southwestern mesa, arms outstretched, gazing at a moonlit sky, and you will know what it's like to be Mesa Man. On loan from Booth Western Art Museum. They even have a little background on Eric Strauss, who graduated from Georgia Southern University and had been forging and fabricating sculptures for the last 30 years. While he started his career in stainless steel and assembly work, his specialty now trends towards heavily forged work. He is a member of the ABNA and the Southern Blacksmith Association. Eric has pieces at the Booth Western Art Museum, Gibbs Garden, Carter Cave Vineyards, and many private collections around the country. So here are the donors right here. And so this guy was basically a blacksmith. That's really pure. That's really pure artistry when you could take raw materials like steel and make it into a work of art. So shout out to Eric Strauss and a nice sculpture of the Mesa Man. And the folks home been working on the railroad. By 1840, the Western and Atlantic Railroad started building rail operations locally. The train depot completed in 1854. Historians document that hundreds of enslaved persons were both owned and leased by the Western and Atlantic during its formative years. By the 1860s, the entire South used this practice to build the third leading railroad miles in the world. Labor contracts to buy or hired enslaved hands to line tracks or aid operations existed in groups of hundreds. These practices were precluded for freedmen citizens after ratification of the 13th Amendment was passed in 1865. Involuntary servitude could only operate as punishment for a duly convicted crime. And by December 1866, the Cartersville and Van Wert Railroad were covered by a Georgia legislative act which allowed employment of state convicts without cost other than sustenance. Various forms of convict leasing practices were used locally and throughout the South for decades. Conversely, post-war railroads also offered new skilled industrial jobs with better income than farm sharecropping. Wofford families of both races worked on the railroad locally for more than 50 years. So, in 1888, news reported lauded Noah Wofford for 22 years of train depot service. Nearly a century later, his grandson Charlie Wofford received a rail operation pension until his death in 1975. Yet these opportunities declined during the periods of Jim Crow and segregation, where the best skilled railroad jobs were taken from African Americans. So you had of course, leasing of slaves. And there's arts associated with Cartersville and slaves working on the railroad. This is called Gandy Men in 1990. Constructed on oil canvas by artist Jonathan Green. Shout out to Jonathan Green for illustrating this part of history associated with slavery. And you also have an illustration of the historic Cartersville train depot in 1910. And it was built in 1854, and it housed the Western and Atlantic Railroad. Now, this particular image came from the Bartow History Museum archives. And this painting right here, or illustration by Jonathan Green, came from the Heart of Dixie Railroad Museum and the William Boone Memorial Library. So yeah, Southern railroads assumed critical importance both regionally and nationally. Railroads entered the imaginations of both the soul and the arts, as with the folk story of railroad worker John Henry, or the works songs of Gandhi men who lined railroad tracks, or the blues song by Lead Belly, Take This Hammer. In the 20th century, footsteps crowded train depots as the Great Migration saw 7 million Southerners seek more social and economic freedom. In 1918, the train depot saw Moses Chambers appeal his conviction and chain gang sentence for daring to share the news of better jobs elsewhere. Yet the call of the home place still beckoned as many Northerners loved Southern summers. Among relatives and rural cultures, railroad laborers gave subsequent generations the mobile freedoms that many never saw in their lifetimes. So yeah, you know, back during that time, again, and I remember reading about John Henry too, by the way. You know, back when I was in elementary school, he had that big hammer. He was a big dude. But yeah, during that time, there was music, there was songs, and there were poems and all those type of things that showed the Great Migration and also illustrated how African Americans, especially during the slave times, working on these railroads. And Toni Morrison is a descendant of, you know, some people right here in Cartersville. As a matter of fact, Toni's father was George Wofford, a native of Cartersville for decades. Many Wofford ancestors labored in railroad-related occupations. George migrated north shortly after his mother, Carrie Morgan, died in 1924. Yet he returned south every year to visit relatives, going back home like a mythical Sankofa bird. Toni visited Cartersville in 1988 with attendees of the Toni Morrison Society, holding its first national conference in Atlanta. She was hosted by Dr. Susie Wheeler and Justice Robert Benham, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And this is the image right here of Toni Morrison, courtesy of Pearl McHaney. Got to give her credit. And this is this is Toni Morrison visiting her father's home in Cartersville for the first time in 1998. So it's good that she, came back to visit her roots. And that's her right there in 1998. A Nobel laureate at Cartersville Public Library. This photo is courtesy of the Daily Tribune News. And it's Chloe Wofford and Toni Morrison with her parents, George and Rama Wofford. That's George right there. And there goes Rama Wofford, and there goes Toni right there in the middle with the afro. And again, George Wofford, born and raised in Cartersville, Georgia. Photo credit of the Lorraine Public Library. I'm going to assume that's the Lorraine Library in Ohio. I could be wrong. Maybe it's a town called Lorraine, Georgia. I'm not sure. But this photo credit of Bartow History Museum is just some railroad porters standing on the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railway line at the Cartersville train depot. And there goes the brother right there, Oliver Cotton, on the far left. And he worked as a porter in the 1920s and the 1930s. So, yeah, very huge history. And 1993, Swedish Academy in Stockholm bestowed the Nobel Prize in Literature upon American writer Toni Morrison. So, so Toni Morrison was given the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1993. And here's a marker right here, too, called A Bench by the Road. There is no place you or I can go to think about or not think about the summon, the presences of or recollect the absences of slaves, nothing that reminds us of the ones who made the journey and those who did not make it. There is no suitable memorial or plaque or wreath or wall or park or skyscraper lobby. There's no 300-foot tower. There's no small bench by the road. Now, A Bench by the Road is a poem written by Toni Morrison, 1989. And this Bench by the Road project was launched by the Toni Morrison Society in honor of Nobel laureate Toni Morrison. And this bench is placed to commemorate the role of African Americans in building the historic Western and Atlantic Railroad and the Cartersville train depot. So it was a bunch of, again, enslaved men, women, and children who toiled the construction of this railroad and the depot after the Civil War. And again, you had a lot of convict laborers working on the railroad. So, you know, very, very important piece of history right here in Cartersville. I'm sitting right here on the bench. And it's really, really cool, really nice by the Toni Morrison Society to work on this project. So let me get back up and continue. And you have this fountain right here. And you have this sculpture. You have the sculpture called Eternal Grace. This is by artist Abigail Hennington. Donated by Ashton, Emma Lynn, Earl, Calvin, and Tammy in memory of Martha Ferguson and Maria Evans. And this is a really nice butterfly sculpture right here. And they even have a little free library where you can get you could take a book, return a book. So that's nice as well to encourage more youth and more people to read. And another nice butterfly sculpture called Time Kept Them Apart by Kent Mullinax. And here's the sponsors: Glenda Mitchell Law Firm, Art in Bartow. So this is really cool, really nice work right here. And this bench is in memory of Edsel Dean, who served on the City Council of Cartersville for 26 years. So really nice how the city of Cartersville pays homage to its residents and historical people of historical importance. So yeah, really dope, really dope. This in memory of Mary Lee Pettit. And this sculpture right here is called Best Friends. The artist is Barry Henderson. Thank you to these best friends. And it looks like some a picture of a sculpture of some dogs. One named Kelsey, one named Scooter, and one named Cody. Really nice project by nice sculpture by Barry Henderson. And these are all his best friends listed right here. A joint project of Art in Bartow and the Etowah Valley Humane Society. And let's get a closer up of the railroad depot, which actually serves as the downtown Cartersville Welcome Center. This colorful artwork right here. You can get a free official state travel guide for promotional purposes. For promotional purposes, I got you. 2026 edition, official state travel guide. Don't mind if I do. And also, I'm gonna get a Cartersville, marketed as the Ville, curated experience, first edition visitor's guide. You know, I like taking advantage of free stuff. So I can plan my, or get inspired for future Georgia travels. I think it's some more art. Yeah, it's definitely more artwork over here too. So this basically serves as a park too, in a sense. You could, this is actually a park. This is called Flying Dreams by artist Catalina Gomez. It's a downtown Cartersville butterfly garden. batteries. And here's another stainless steel sculpture by Eric Strauss. It's called The Element of Reason. This kind of has a spiritual vibe to it. It's also made out of stainless steel, bronze, and marble. So yeah, very spiritual vibe. Again, it's called Element of Reason. And it's on loan from the artist himself, Eric Strauss. And it's available for purchase. So this is actually available for purchase. You can inquire about the purchase price at the Depot Welcome Center. That's pretty cool. There's some more stuff over there, by the way. We're gonna get to that in a minute. But on the heart of the chase, again, this chase, the Great Locomotive Chase, on April 12th, 1862, Union spies led by James Andrews hijacked the locomotive General in Kennesaw, Georgia. The raiders ran north in hopes of burning bridges, ripping up rails, and cutting telegraph wires on the Georgia-owned Western and Atlantic Railroad. The plan would prevent Confederate reinforcements from Atlanta and allow Union General Ormsby Mitchell time to attack Chattanooga. Pursued by conductor William Fuller, engineer Jeff Kane, and foreman Anthony Murphy, the chase covered 5 counties before the general ran out of steam north of Ringgold. No other county offered as much thrill and action than Bartow. All 3 chase engines were acquired in Bartow, and the greatest track distance was covered in Bartow, and the general was sidetracked for an hour in Kingston, where Andrew's story was challenged by depot agent Uriah Stevens. The event is considered to be America's greatest railroad adventure, resulting in awarding of the nation's first Medal of Honors. In 1956, Walt Disney made the event into a movie entitled The Great Locomotive Chase. I didn't know that. But this was the Etowah Valley Historical Society and the Cartersville, Bartow County, Georgia Convention and Visitors Bureau provided this historical marker of a very historical event, not only in Cartersville history, but American history as a whole. Right here, Friendship Plaza, over here by the depot. And just looking at this really amazing artwork. Looks like an owl right there. Now, I believe this is by Manami Lingerfeld. Manami Lingerfeld, who is the artist born in Japan. Manami Lingerfeld graduated from Musashino Art College in 1985. She began a career in Tokyo, Japan as a graphic designer and illustrator with major magazines and newspapers. And over the years, she had the opportunity to explore the world, dwelling briefly in places such as India, Nepal, Thailand, Sweden, and other parts of Asia and Europe from 1987 to 1997. In 2015, she obtained a BFA from Kennesaw State University College of Arts. Manami now calls Dallas, Georgia home and has produced paintings inspired by mythical aspects of the places she visited and of the natural world. That's really dope that Manami, would go to these places and design art based on her experiences and her vision of those places. So that's really cool. And she painted this mural right here in Cartersville. So it's really good that she came from Japan, but made Georgia her home, her permanent home. And I think this is more of her work right here. This is really cool. I love the blend of colors, the butterflies. It looks very cosmic, very spiritual. You even have a little girl right here reading a book, and it looks like she's, how you read a book and you can visualize where you can basically paint pictures in your mind and visualize being there when you read. That's basically what this, that's how I interpret this art piece. That's how I interpret this art piece. It's butterfly wings. It's more of her work right here. Manami Lingerfeld. Really, really dope artist. This is really cool right here. Very cool. And here's God Bless America, September 11th, 2001. We will not forget. Marker commemorating 9/11, 2001. We're coming up on the 25th anniversary of that this year in 2026. And here are the first responders, firefighter, policemen, paramedics, in memory and honor of those who serve and protect our great country. And this memorial given by Frank Perkins, Cartersville Monument Company, and Steve Owen at Owen Funeral Home on September 11, 2003. Shout out to them for that. Yep, very spiritual artwork again by Manami Lingerfeld. Really cool. Blend of colors. You got the farms. Just basically illustrating life here in, Georgia, the deep South. This monument that sits outside of the Cartersville Depot, and it's called the Friendship Monument, and the nearby marble shaft has the unique distinction of having been erected by a debtor in honor of his creditors. Losses during the Panic of 1857 forced Mark A. Cooper, proprietor of the Etowah Iron Works, to offer this property for sale to satisfy a $100,000 debt. 38 friends signed notes totaling that amount to save the enterprise. When the debt was repaid in 1860, Cooper erected this monument on which the names on his benefactors are inscribed. So it's really cool that a group of locals came together to help Mark Cooper save his business, which was $100,000 in debt, so 100K under. And to tribute on the monument, this monument, again, erected by Mark A. Cooper, proprietor at Etowah, as a grateful tribute to the friendship and liberality of those whose names are hereon inscribed, which prompted them to aid him in the prosecution and development of the interest at Etowah. And 38 names of monuments. And here are the names right here on the west side, east side, and north side. So you guys can freeze frame it if you want to get see who these names are. And if you know these people, if you are descendants of these individuals, shout out to y'all. So yeah, a business is very important. It's definitely an asset you would want to protect. So shout out to Mark A. Cooper. Had to get this right here. This was a 19th century mail cart original to the Cartersville Depot, donated by Fred Gunn of the Gunn Contracting Services. So I wanted to get this before I depart the depot area. Shout out to Fred Gunn for this donation. Back on Main Street, right here in Cartersville. You have this building right here, 34 West Main Street building, next to a Pilates, Main Street Pilates. Jordan Scott Salon. Oh, they have a Jefferson's Restaurant right here. Olive Tree and Vine. Old Savannah Cigar Bar right here. Blue Sky Outfitters. For all you outdoorsmen out there, outdoorsmen and outdoors women. Yeah, Blue Sky Outfitter. I also have this Kilwin's right here. Kilwin's ice cream spot. You see right there. And on the side of this building right here is an advertisement for Coca-Cola. It says drink Coca-Cola right here. And this is the first wall, the first painted wall sign to advertise Coca-Cola. And it was placed on this wall back in 1894, but the sign was restored in 1989. And of course, Coca-Cola is a trademark of Coca-Cola Company. And the Young Brothers Pharmacy, circa 1881. So yeah, that's the first advertisement. Let me get a picture of it on the phone. First painted wall in America to advertise Coke right here in Cartersville. At the corner of Main Street and Museum Drive. Museum Drive is the route to the Booth Western Art Museum. It's About Time Boutique. So a few antique shops right here. Boutiques, antique shops. There's an antique and fine gift shop right here. Let's go ahead and cross. And this is an artwork right here by Autumn. All Outer Art. Shout out to Autumn for this nice artwork on the side of this Mellow Mushroom restaurant. Mellow Mushroom, of course, the pizzeria. They have a Mellow Mushroom downtown Cartersville. So it's a few restaurants down this way on this particular stretch of road. Right over here on the side of the depot. You can even see the dome of the county courthouse from over here. You have Table 20 restaurant. Have an adult store right there. Wow. Westmoreland Workwear. So you can come down here and get your work gear. For all my blue collar workers out there. Lula Bell's Closet right over here. It was originally home. This was originally home where this soda fountain is. The Jerk soda fountain was originally home to what was called the Home Savings Bank, as you can see right here, circa 1907. Little Roots Outfitters children's store. It's a Grand Theater right here. Now the Grand Theater was built in 1910, and it has a 1920 style architecture for theaters. It hosts concerts ballet productions, theatrical productions. And it also sits right next to this AM FM station called WBHF. WBHF. Sound like they play oldies. Downtown gallery right here. A local landmark right here called Raw Sandwiches Diner. And here comes a sculpture. It's called right outside of what's called the Shakespeare Garden. A project of leadership Bartow 2014. Let's take a look at it, shall we? Now, this is the garden right here. I wonder who this is a sculpture of. Let me see if I can get some information on it real quick. Okay, so it's a bronze statue of Don Cordecki, a respected art promoter and former resident of Cartersville, Georgia. This life-size sculpture was unveiled on April 5th, 2025 in the Shakespeare Garden of downtown Cartersville. And Cordecki served as a technical director of Cartersville Grand Theater and was instrumental in the local arts community. Now, this sculpture was created by sculptor Julia Knight, and it sits right in here in this garden with a multitude of flowers. So shout out to the sculptor Julia Knight and Don Cordecki. And this is a really nicely designed garden. And it's basically themed by the works of the great William Shakespeare. So they have quotes from different Shakespeare tragedies right here, Shakespeare works. So very creative right here. And this garden sits right on the side of this rock shop. They sell vinyl records. They're closed right now, unfortunately, but here's the storefront. They even have the Atlanta's 96 Rock t-shirts, merch. They even have a Pink Floyd at Pompeii poster right here. So it looks like a pretty cool shop. I just wish it was open. Just wish it was open right now. And there's a bar and grill called 8 Track. Interesting, it's called 8 Track, and it sits right next to a vinyl shop. So keeping in theme with the music. Now, 29 Wall Street was originally a grocery store built by R.R. Rea. It's now occupied by Louis Tonsmere Studio Professional Photography. But this was originally a grocery store built by R.R. Rea, 1911. And this is the downtown Cartersville Historic District, which was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2014. They have this right here, the Bridge House Cafe, originally maize and green grocery store, built in 1907. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool stuff right there. And by the way, let me go over here to this museum. This is the Bartow History Museum, which used to be the Bartow County Courthouse. So this is the old Bartow County Courthouse, which was built in 1873, but it is now occupied by the Bartow History Museum. So, and there's also this Nice butterfly sculpture. Artist, it's called Fruits of the Spirit. As you can see, that's it right there. And it's by artist Amy Wilmoth Watts in memory of Doris Tidwell, who left her mark by helping others. So really nice art piece in dedication to Doris Tidwell, created by Amy Wilworth Watts. Again, it's called The Fruits of the Spirit. Now, Maize and Green also owned a feed and flower store that was built in 1924 and opened in 1924 and is now occupied by the Appalachian Grill. H&M Poultry and Seafood Market, built 1945, now occupied by Lulu Boutique. So in this, on this little stretch right here alone, were a lot of whole historical businesses. This looks like it says love with the African continent symbol right there. So it looks like they sell African themed merchandise. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool to have that right here. It's a salon right here as well. So I'm guessing this is kind of like the arts district of Cartersville. This piece of art we're about to look at is called Art in Bartow. Just want to get a little background on it. This painting represents the 4 areas of arts taught under the National Standard for Arts, Drama, Dance, Visual Arts, and Music. 4 local artists incorporated Bartow County images into iconic paintings by nationally historically recognized artists. 10 school children participated in the painting while learning about the mural process. This project could have not been possible without the support of our community vendors, sponsors, volunteers, county commissioner, Cartersville mayor, and city council. And drama through realism. You had this, so it's basically, it looks like it's a collection of multiple art pieces. Drama through realism by Edward Hopper, widely known as the most important realist painter of the 20th century America, in reference to Hopper's famous theater paintings. The longtime director of Grand Theater, Don Kordecki, is shown on stage at the Grand Theater. He was instrumental in promoting Bartow County community services over several decades. So here's an up-close picture of this artwork by Edward Harper, and that is Kordecki right there in the Grand Theater back in the day. Then you had Dance Through Pop Street in Street Art by Keith Haring, the late Keith Haring, who was an American artist whose pop art grew out of the New York City street culture of the 70s through the 90s. 4 of his iconic figures are represented with Bartow County's high school colors as for a form of ballet, break, and modern dance. So we're gonna take a look at that in a minute up close. And you have the visual arts through Impressionism by Vincent van Gogh, a post-impressionist painter. His famous painting Starry Night includes images of the 1902 Bartow County Gold Dome Courthouse and the Ottawa Indian Mounds. Even our trains get acknowledged. Okay, that's dope. And music through cubism and abstract art. Of course, the world famous Pablo Picasso. His famous painting, Three Musicians, incorporates Western hats as a nod to Bartow's nationally recognized Booth Western Art Museum, the Smithsonian affiliate. The depiction of the fiddle, guitar, and upright bass represents the annual Cartersville Bluegrass and Roots Festival held each year in historic downtown Cartersville. Okay, that's pretty dope. And here are all the sponsors of this artwork, Art in Bartow. And yeah, here you go. There goes the Golden Dome Courthouse, the trains right here. And This is by Vincent Van Gogh. And here goes the figures, the breakdancing hip hop figures by Keith Haring, the late Keith Haring. And again, it's the local high school colors right there. And this is Picasso right here. This is Picasso's artwork with music, visual arts, dance, and drama. So really cool art piece called Art in Bartow, a collection of multiple art pieces. Drama through realism, dance through pop and street art, visual arts through impression, and music through cubism and abstract art. Dope piece of work right here in Cartersville. Now here is the nationally renowned Booth Western Art Museum, a Smithsonian affiliate. So you know if it's a Smithsonian affiliate, it's the real deal Holyfield. And I'm standing right in front of the Booth Art Western Museum, but it's really cool artwork right here in the front. Nice sculptures that we're gonna take a look at. And right here is what's called the Basket Dancers. And it's a bronze sculpture of the Pueblo women. It was done by Glenna Goodacre. And it was the Basket Dancers was sculpted in 1987 out of bronze. Glenna Goodacre is now 87 years old, and she's still living. She's still living. That's so shout out to Glenda Goodacre for this really nice artwork. Now again, these are the Pueblo women of the Native American tribe. Now, the basket dance is a tribute to the important role women play in sustaining Pueblo culture. The basket carried by each dancer symbolizes the bounty provided by the earth. The fetish sticks carried in the other hand represent the work women do, planting, harvesting, and preparing food, as well as making tools and clothing. So there again, these are the fetish sticks right here, and this is the bowl, representing the bounty provided by the earth. So really interesting artwork right here in front of Booth Western Art. Let's go over here to this work of art. Now, this sculpture by Mel Lawson. This sculpture by Mel Lawson is called When Winter Winds Blow. It was sculpted in 1997, also out of bronze. And in 1992, Mel Lawson was awarded Best of Show honors for a smaller version of this sculpture at the annual Cowboy Artists of America exhibition in sale. Lawson says he was trying to portray the hardships cowboys and horses endure while doing their job. It is a job still being done today. Much of the same it has always been done on ranches all over the country. So yes, this represents the hardships of the cowboys, and but it honors their contribution to society, to the history of America. So shout out to Mel Lawson for this sculpture, When Winter Winds Blow, sculpted 1997. Let me get back over here. It's the front again, the front of the museum. Goes a nice view of the county courthouse again from over here. So we're gonna get a couple of these sculptures on the outside of the museum. A couple more sculptures. Now this one by Mick Dollinger is called The Getaway, sculpted in 2009 out of bronze. So it looks like a picture of a deer, a sculpture of a deer. Those wide antlers, those massive antlers. And it was a gift of Fred and Beryl Everett on loan. And when spooked, white-tailed deer dropped low to the ground, tail tucked under, directing all their energy into propelling themselves forward. And it's a quote by Mick Dollinger, and it's a very accurate description of how the deers react when they get spooked, especially that deer in the headlights look. So shout out to Mick Dollinger for that nice sculpture called The Getaway. Now this really nice sculpture with a bunch of numbers on it is called The General, in memory of Erlene Burke, and the artist is Renee Peterson. Erlene Burke worked with numbers all her life. Following a successful career in corporate accounting, she brought her skills to the nonprofit world. She helped establish Georgia Museums, Inc., and was a strong supporter of all the museums in Bartow County. Some of the numbers on the butterfly represent addresses, P.O. boxes, and partial phone numbers from throughout her lifetime. She was also instrumental in starting Art in Bartow, the organization responsible for distributing these iron butterflies throughout Bartow County. Shout out to Erlene Burke, and shout out to Renee Peterson for this very creative piece of artwork right here. And yes, I'm just now finding out that these are iron butterfly sculptures throughout Bartow County. So that's very creative, you know, and the numbers, all of that right there with her different phone numbers and P.O. boxes throughout her life. Also very creative. So shout out to Erlene Burke, and shout out to Renee Peterson for the artwork right here at the Booth Western Art Museum, downtown Cartersville. It's called A Bird in Bloom by Dorothy Reeves. Nice sculpture, nice and colorful sculpture, again by Dorothy Reeves, called A Bird in Bloom. And before I go, I had to get this really dope picture, this engraving into the ground of the Western and Atlantic Railroad and the towns that it traversed. You have Taylorsville, Georgia right there. You have Stylesboro. You have Emerson and Allatoona. You have Lake Allatoona right there. Of course, you have Cartersville right here in the center. You Harley, the Ottawa River. Got Kingston nearby, Cassville, the former county seat of Bartow. Adairsville, we visited there about a year or so ago. I did a vlog there, and we have Folsom, Pine Log, Rydell, Funkhauser, and White. So a lot of towns traversed by the Western and Atlantic Railroad. So I think this is really dope. Whoever put this together, it's really nice. Adds to the flavor of downtown. So with that in mind, good people, this concludes this vlog of Cartersville. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to this vlog. If you made it this far, make sure you hit the like button. Also, if you're new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell. And once you hit that bell, make sure you tap all. That way you get notified each and every time I drop a new vlog. With that in mind, this is another P9 production here in Cartersville, and I'm out. Peace.